This British Royals military career is often mentioned and commented on, but not always fully understood. Today, we're going to look at the military career and medals of the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry. Looking at Prince Harry's ribbons, it looks like he has 1 Order of Chivalry, 1 Campaign Medal, and 3 commemorative medals. Harry would always have a childhood ambition to join the armed forces and passed the Regular Commissions Board in September 2004 for the Army. In May 2005, aged 20, he entered Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst. Army officer training at Sandhurst lasts around 44 weeks and covers basic soldiering skills, leadership and advanced command training. Like all recruits, Harry would be pushed to his limits of physical and mental endurance. Speaking of undergoing training at Sandhurst, Harry recalled, "As with monks, each cadet had his own cell. It has to be kept pristine at all times. Our small beds had to be made tight. At the end of the day, I'd sit in my cell, bulling my boots, spitting on them, rubbing them, making them mirrors in which I could see my shorn head." In April 2006, he completed his training and was commissioned as a cornet or second lieutenant in the Blues and Royals, part of the Household Cavalry. The Blues and Royals, formerly the Royal Horse Guards and 1st Dragoons, is one of the most historic and prestigious regiments in the British Army, with roots going back to the mid-17th century. Alongside ceremonial duties, the regiment's operational role is armoured reconnaissance. Many people may have not have heard of the rank of cornet before. Interestingly, newly commissioned officers in the Blues and Royals have that rank, rather than second lieutenant, which is the standard rank in the rest of the British Army. It's also reportedly the only regiment in the British Army that allows troopers and non-commissioned officers, when not wearing headdress, to salute an officer. On passing out in April 2006, Harry stated, "I was no longer Prince Harry. I was Second Lieutenant Wales of the Blues and Royals, second oldest regiment of the British Army, part of the Household Cavalry, bodyguards to the monarch." Now newly commissioned, Harry was initially eager to deploy with his regiment to Iraq, but was held back for security reasons. Frustrated, he requested an operational role from his commanding officer and was successful. He was then sent on a training course as a forward air controller. Forward air controllers are tasked with orchestrating all air power giving cover to troops on the ground. This could include calling in airstrikes, rescues or medevacs. Essentially, when faced with a threat or situation, the forward air controller requests the most appropriate air platform for the job and guides the aircraft onto the enemy. To qualify for the role, Harry trained with the Royal Air Force at RAF Leeming in the Yorkshire Dales and qualified as a Joint Terminal Attack Controller, or JTAC. In December 2007, shrouded in secrecy, Harry flew out on his first tour of Afghanistan and joined British forces in Helmand Province in the south of the country. Helmand was the British Army's area of responsibility under ISAF, or the International Security Assistance Force, because it was a Taliban stronghold with key opium production and insurgent supply routes, requiring sustained counterinsurgency operations to stabilise the region and support the incumbent Afghan government. Of his journey, Harry said, "I went to Brize Norton and boarded a C-117. There were dozens of other soldiers on the plane, but I was the only stowaway. With help, I boarded in secret, then crept into an alcove behind the cockpit. The alcove had bunk beds for the crew on overnight flights. As the big engines fired, as the plane roared down the runway, I lay on a bottom bunk, my small rucksack as a pillow." Whilst pondering his future tour on the flight, and illustrative of Harry's contentious relationship with the media, Harry thought to himself, "If I die in Afghanistan, I thought, at least I'll never have to see another fake headline, read another shameful lie about myself." Entering theatre, his flight arrived at Kandahar airfield in nearby Helmand Province, which at the time was the responsibility of the Canadian forces in Afghanistan. Harry was soon deployed to Fob Dwyer, southwest of the strategically important town of Garmsir. Fob, or Forward Operating Base Dwyer, was home to around 50 soldiers, mostly artillery and household cavalry. The main weapons on the base were a pair of 105mm guns, which would fire off several times a day at nearby Taliban positions. Reportedly, one day the guns were fired over 100 times. Living in Spartan conditions, Harry and the troops on the base would be caked in sand all day with few amenities. Being December, the desert was freezing cold, especially at night. The troops would get few opportunities to wash properly. He recalled, "I was a British soldier on the battlefield at last, a role for which I've been preparing for all my life." Harry's main role would be coordinating airstrikes on Taliban positions, as well as coordinating air operations such as resupplies. For the next few weeks, operating under the call sign Widow 67, Harry worked on a terminal known as a rover, known colloquially to soldiers as Kill TV. The rover would let Harry see the same live video feed as the aircraft overhead, helping him identify enemy positions, confirm friendly locations, and guide pilots accurately onto their targets. Using the terminal, he could mark coordinates, torque aircraft into the correct spot, clear airstrikes, and adjust the tacks in real time, making close air support faster, safer, and far more precise. In late December, Harry would then be transferred to Fob Delhi in Garmsir, working alongside the Gurkhas. Garmsir was notorious as a staging area and entry point for Taliban insurgent fighters going onwards to fight across the province. Fob Delhi was based in the abandoned ruins of an old college, with an operations room being a former classroom. For Harry, this was a more intense role than at Fob Dwyer, and would involve calling in airstrikes on nearby Taliban positions. On one occasion, manning a lookout with 4 Gurkhas, reportedly his group came under attack. Of the incident, Harry said, "AK-47s rattling, bullets whizzing by. It sounded like someone throwing a beehive through our window. There were 4 Gurkhas with me, and they unleashed a javelin missile in the direction of the incoming fire." Harry would also then return fire with a 50 caliber machine gun. "I squeezed the trigger. The feeling was like a train through the middle of my chest. It was the first time I'd ever fired a 50 cal. I simply could not believe the power." During his tour, he would also gain wider experience and go out on patrol or escort duty in Spartan or similar armoured reconnaissance vehicles outside the wire, and see service both in the north and south of Helmand. I would assume that would have been with one of the squadrons of household cavalry that were deployed to the province. Harry would keep his face covered to remain anonymous, and he would be treated like any other officer by his men. Of this experience, Harry stated, "It's very nice to be a normal person. For once, I think it's about as normal as I'm ever going to get." One time driving with a convoy of scimitar tanks from Forward Operating Base Edinburgh, passing through Musakala in the north of the province, his patrol came upon an IED. This was found and cleared by bomb disposal. On another occasion, his unit supported an ISAF offensive aimed at disrupting Taliban lines of communication, and once again reportedly came under fire. Until that point in his tour, Harry's deployment had successfully been kept under wraps. However, his cover was blown when an Australian news outlet broke the news of his deployment internationally. Due to security concerns, he would be extracted the next day from theatre via Kandahar, and finally returned back to the UK on the 1st of March 2008. He spent around 10 weeks on tour in Afghanistan. For service there, he received an Operational Service Medal with Afghanistan clasp. A rosette would also be issued which signifies the clasp when only the ribbon is worn. In April 2008, Harry was promoted to lieutenant. During this time, as Britain's most eligible bachelor of the noughties, Harry would reside at Clarence House, just down the road from Buckingham Palace. Soon after he returned from Afghanistan, Harry would have a meeting with Army Chief of the General Staff, General Richard Dannett. In the meeting, Harry would request another deployment, and this time conduct a full and proper tour. Considering Harry's request, Dannett reportedly suggested Apache helicopter training, although the training would take about 2 years. For the rest of the summer, Harry would return to routine duties, such as ceremonial functions. Often, and behind the scenes, he would visit wounded soldiers returned to the UK, and would think of future ways that he could help bring more awareness to veterans' issues, such as supporting charities. Harry was then seconded to the Army Air Corps in late 2008 and began his initial flight training at RAF Barkston Heath, before moving on to more specialised helicopter training at RAF Shawbury and Middle Wallop. Over the following months, he gradually became more confident in the air, eventually conducting training flights over London. Pilots would use navigational landmarks such as the Thames, Millennium Wheel, Houses of Parliament, and the Royal Palaces. He would qualify as a co-pilot gunner weapons specialist. The co-pilot is junior to the primary pilot and aircraft commander who was positioned in the rear, whilst the co-pilot, i.e. Harry, would sit in the front seat. Although qualified as a pilot, Harry's role would be more weapons focused. In May 2010, Harry received his pilot's wings, which were reportedly pinned to his chest by his father, now King Charles III, in his role as Colonel-in-Chief of the Army Air Corps. Later, in 2011, Harry took part in a North Pole expedition to raise awareness for wounded servicemen and women. The trip, in addition to raising funds for charitable causes, wanted to highlight the challenges faced by injured veterans. During the expedition, Harry received frostbite-related injuries to his extremities, including his private parts. Extreme cold and exposure whilst urinating outdoors caused the tissue on his willy to freeze. Speaking of these injuries, Harry stated, "Upon arriving home, I'd been horrified to discover my nether regions were frost-nipped as well, and while the ears and cheeks were already healing, the todger wasn't." After unsuccessfully applying Elizabeth Arden cream to the exposed areas, Harry consulted a doctor, explaining, "I went to the North Pole and now my South Pole is on the fritz." I know Harry has his critics, but to be fair, you've got to give it to him. He does have a sense of humour. To add embarrassment to injury, the state of the Royal Nether Regions was then leaked to the media and splashed all over the headlines. Luckily, however, for the virility of the royal household, time healed the injury. In September 2012, now promoted to captain, Harry once again deployed to Afghanistan. In contrast to his first tour in primitive conditions, now based as a pilot in Camp Bastion, he had his own room with soft beds and air conditioning. Unlike the first tour, this tour was publicly known, and a team of bodyguards would be assigned to protect him. Upon arrival, Harry was given a week to orient himself around the camp. During this time, the Taliban launched a coordinated attack on Bastion, which killed 2 US Marines and injured 17 British and American troops. Several US aircraft were damaged in the attack. Prince Harry was stated as one of the main targets for the assault. As a high-profile target, in this incident, Harry would be protected by bodyguards, although he did express his frustration later at being prevented from participating in the defence of the base. Harry recalled, "We all felt dread and adrenaline, but we Apache pilots were especially agitated, itching to get into our cockpits." The daily battle rhythm or schedule as a pilot would be 2 days of operations and 3 days of very high readiness on standby. On standby in the VHR tent, waiting for the alarm to go off, Harry and his comrades would spend the time playing FIFA, drinking gallons of coffee and flipping through lad magazines. There would be 2 flight crews on permanent standby in the tent. Although Harry's service as an Apache pilot drew plenty of attention, it was his later comments about the number of enemy combatants he believed he'd engaged which sparked a lot of discussion. Some commentators felt that that kind of detail should probably stay private. Others saw it as him being able to open up about the realities of frontline operations. Either way, those remarks ended up being one of the more controversial parts of Harry's military career. Around Christmas 2012, Harry's tour would come to an end. Stopping off in Cyprus for mandatory decompression, he would then return home. Over his career, he would also be awarded a series of Royal Commemorative or Jubilee medals. And I believe, going forward, as a Royal, he will be entitled to further awards, such as, say, for example, William's Coronation Medal. Tour complete, Harry was then posted to Wattisham Airfield. His aim was to become a qualified Apache aircraft commander, i.e. the senior pilot. Qualifying for the role, in 2014, he was then appointed to a staff role at HQ London District, based at Horse Guards. There, he helped coordinate significant projects and ceremonial events involving the Army in London. That same year, after witnessing the US Warrior Games, he launched the Invictus Games, a Paralympic-style sporting event for injured servicemen and women. As president of the Games, he oversaw the selection of athletes, promotion, and all aspects of the events. During this time, he would continue to visit recovery centres and support wounded veterans. In a final assignment, he would also undertake a month-long secondment to the Australian Defence Force in 2015. Harry then decided to resign his active service commission in June 2015. At the time of leaving the Army, he had completed 10 years of service. In June 2015, Harry was appointed Knight Commander of the Royal Victorian Order. This is a personal gift from the monarch and came at a time when Harry was ending his decade-long service with the British Army. Even though he'd left the armed forces, in May 2018, Harry was promoted honourably to Major and the equivalent rank in the Royal Navy and Air Force, and this is due to the in line with peers principle for the royal family. In 2020, now married, Harry stepped back from regular working roles of the British royal family. He would also give up his honorary military positions such as Captain General of the Royal Marines and Commodore-in-Chief of the Royal Navy Small Ships and Diving. Therefore, Prince Harry's medals are Knight Commander of the Royal Victorian Order, Operational Service Medal with Afghanistan clasp, Queen Elizabeth II Golden Jubilee Medal, Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal, Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee Medal. I've also read that he's entitled to receive a King Charles III Coronation Medal, but I haven't seen any pictures of him wearing one. I guess as a civilian with no royal duties, there's no need to. In 2017, along with other members of his family, Harry received the Spanish Order of Isabella the Catholic, a royal decoration. In regards to medals, I've had multiple requests for the royal family, especially Prince Harry. I've used his memoirs Spare as a source for much of this video. With Prince Harry being a figure of public interest and discussion in recent years, I've just tried to stick to purely the military side of his life rather than get entangled in all the rest. I get the impression many people know about his time as an Apache pilot in Afghanistan, but are less aware of his first tour, so I aim to highlight that more in this video. His medals have been one of the most requested video topics I've had over the last year or so for this channel. His military career has attracted a lot of attention, commentary, and sometimes conflicting accounts. It can be hard to judge the reliability of all that, so for the majority of this video, I've relied on primary sources, i.e. Harry's memoir Spare, along with official information available online. People will always have their opinions on his service. I've done my best to look at the information and try to separate it from the noise. Well, I never thought I'd be talking about Prince Harry's Todger on a medal collecting channel. But this is Class of Courage and we go where the information takes us. Anyway, I hope you found some value from this. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.